Well, welcome back. A 2005 Chevy Suburban. It's my truck. Doing an oil change and a tire rotation. Been hearing a noise in the front end, so whenever I have the front wheels off the ground, check the suspension, I'm going to show you what I found and do another video based on what I found. So kind of looking inside the passenger side front wheel well here, and when I picked this tire off the ground on this side, and I like to test it for wheel, for a ball joint or a tie rod end and playing the suspension. When I rocked the tire, front to back to see if I had any play, had an awful lot of play, and I'm going to show you what I found. I had enough that I don't even need the tire on there to show you. So what you're looking at right there, if I can get it to focus on it, hopefully, is the inner tie rod end on the passenger side. If you watch that, you could see it move, probably close to 1/4 of an inch. That's not supposed to move at all. So that inner ball joint, that inner tie rod end is just completely shot. So we're going to replace that inner tie rod end on this. All right, so this is a tie rod. So first thing we have to do, we have to break this lock nut loose that holds the outer tie rod on. We need to take that off. So you just got an adjustable wrench here. If you have a BNF wrench, just use a wrench. I'm going to hold on to the tie rod. Try to get out of your way for this. I'm probably right in your way. Get a good hold of that and try to break this loose. Try to. Of course, it's giving me a hard time. Mess with it. I get a big wrench out, pipe wrench basically. This is getting replaced. The outer tie rod end is not, but the tie rod and the lock nut are. So I'm just going to get a bigger wrench here, not even mess with it. Let's see if I can get it that way. There we go. A little easier to do it with a bigger wrench. I just need to break that loose. And once it's loose, you can see it's loose. I'm just going to spin it back even with the back up against the outer tie rod end. Take my wrench off. To undo this cotter pin at the bottom here and undo this stud for the outer tie rod end and break this loose next. No problem with that one. Came right off. Which is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this capsule nut for this outer ball joint and I'm going to put it back on even with the end of the stud. Get started here. I don't have to worry about damaging the threads on this. Just spin that up so it's even with the end of the stud. Okay. So I'm going to hit this with a hammer. You want to hit what it goes through. Try to break it loose. I might have to tap up on this as well to break this one loose. But before I do that, actually, I want to clean some of that grease off of there. I don't need that getting all over everything. Might as well just clean it up now a little bit. It's good to see that it's greased, though. I mean, that's kind of good. Looks like this has been replaced at some point. It's not OEM outer tie rod here. This is aftermarket. I don't know whose, but that's what it looks like. I'm going to turn this now so I can get a better shot at it. Then I'm just going to hit this with a hammer. Try to break it loose. Sometimes these can be difficult. You might have to get a pickle fork, but usually they're not too bad. Hit the camera. There we go. Just tap up on a little bit, it's loose. So now that I have this loose, I'll show you a little trick that I use. It's not really a trick, but I have to undo this whole tie rod. So you're going to have to get an alignment done after you do this. There's no two ways around it. You just have to get an alignment done to make sure it's right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark up here on the frame inside, and you probably can't see it. I'm going to mark up here, up on the frame. You still can't see that. Let me give you a better shot. Up in here on the frame, I'm going to put a mark, and then down basically on the rotor, I'm going to put a mark here that I can measure to, and I'll also put a mark right next to this edge of this caliper, so if the rotor turns, I can put it back to where I started from. And I'm going to use that as a measurement, as a rough measurement, to make sure when I put the new tie rod in, I have the same measurement, basically, making the alignment very close to what it was. I'm also going to count the revolutions as I take this outer tie rod end off, so when I put the new one on, the same number of revolutions goes back on. Let me get a marker for that, and we'll mark this and show you what I mean. Back the camera a little bit. I need a little bit of wider here so I can show you everything. All right. So I'm just going to put a mark. Like I said, I'll put a mark up here that I can use. I'll come down here. I'll put a mark on the outer edge here. And then I'll come over here, more light, and I'll just put a mark right along here, along the front of that caliper. So I'm going to measure that. My measurement here. This is rough. Like I said, this is a rough estimate. You still have to get alignment done, but I do want to just get a mark off of it to see what we have here. Get the, so we've got 17 and 13/16. 17 13/16. Am I going to try to remember that? No. No, I'm not. I'm going to write it right on the rotor. 17 and 13/16. We'll clean that up with brake clean when we're done. Alright, so now I have my measurement. Now I want to take my outer tie rod end off. I'm not replacing the outer tie rod end, it's fine. So the inner end's bad. So just take that off, and now I'm going to count the number of revolutions. Hopefully you can see this. I've got a nice spot I can see it, hopefully. Adjust it here. Okay. 1, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 26. So we'll just set that aside for now. My castle nut. Put my castle nut back on there so I don't lose it or misplace it. It's not going to walk away, but well, we're going to be replacing this outer ball joint as well. You probably can't hear that. That's pretty beat. So I'm going to get an outer ball joint. I said outer ball joint, outer tie rod, and I'm going to get a new tie rod end for the outer on this as well. It definitely needs to be replaced. The other side was fine. This side's not so good. So that's junk. We're replacing that. So now, inside this inner tie rod end is a flat. Looks like a hex, like a nut, basically. There is a tool you can get as a loaner from most auto parts stores, which you slide over and has a special end on it that gets a hold of that, reaches around and gets a hold of those flats to take this off, and then you can break it loose. On this truck, there's enough room that I'm just going to go behind that with this pipe wrench And I'm going to use the pipe wrench to break this loose and take it off, so we'll do that next. So right here's the boot on the inner tie rod, and right behind it is the flat that I'm talking about. I'm going to go underneath. And I had this up on jack stands. I do not have this up sitting on a floor jack. Be safe. Put jack stands under there. Don't ever get under a car without that. And I'm going to use a pipe wrench to break this loose. Alright, I just got my pipe wrench line up here. Got it in a good spot. Got room. I'm just going to break this loose. There we go. That's all I need to do. So now it's loose. I can just spin that off. Alright, so in here, you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's grease. There's a Zerk fitting, a grease fitting. And I'm going to actually clean that fitting and push some grease to make sure that this Zerk is not clogged before I get into putting the new tie rod back on there. Okay, so get this where you can see it. So here are the flats that I was talking about. You see, it's just a big nut basically built into this joint, built into the inner tie rod end. And there's enough room, like I said, on this truck to get in there. If you have a big wrench, I think this is 35 millimeter maybe. I don't have one that big. And my adjustable wasn't even big enough for it, so I just used a pipe wrench. Pipe wrench gives you more leverage anyway. Right in there, you can see the end of the, I don't know if you see that hole in the middle of the tie rod. That's where the grease comes in, so I'm going to check that now. Just reach back in here and clean this. Clean the Zerk fitting off. Now, obviously from the factory, this has a Zerk fitting inside, and these ball joints, I believe, are both greasable. I don't know if they're OEM or they've been replaced, but if you're replacing suspension parts and you can get a greasable part, like a ball joint or a tie rod end, or get a greasable part. They're just better. They're going to last longer as long as you maintain them. I say that in a lot of my videos, do your maintenance. You know, I found this because I was doing a oil change and tire rotation, and every time I do that, I want to check the suspension, make sure there's nothing wrong. That's how I found out they had a problem. So I can see the grease. I don't know if you can, but I can see the grease coming through there, which is all I wanted to see. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't clogged. Sometimes those Zerk fittings get clogged up. They don't work, so it's fine. Now I can spin the new one on, and I'll re-grease it. I might as well show you the part number, I guess. The light there for you. Hopefully you can see that. ES 3488. Same part for both sides of this truck. It's no different one side or the other. I'm just going to reach back in here and do a little cleaning right in there. So right in here there's some junk here. I want to make sure these threads are clean. Yeah, it's not metal. It's not the threads. I saw this on the other side too. Some kind of sealer that's in here. I'm just going to reach in there and pull it out. Okay, that cleaned out. Get my new tie rod here. The new one here, right up so close you can't even see it. Back this off again. Let's see what's going on. Alright. Just going to spin the nut on here. Get that up out of the way. Now these come, they already have thread locker on them. So, you know, if yours don't, put some blue thread locker on them. Not red. You'll be unhappy if you put red on there and have to get them off. So, blue thread locker. I'm just going to start it here, get it lined up. See if I can get it started here. This is a little difficult because of this sway bar's kind of a little bit in the way. There it goes. So, I'll spin that on. I'm going to go back underneath, tighten it up. I tried to find a torque reading for the inner tie rod end. I could not find one. I looked at two different I looked in Identifix and Mitchell, and I couldn't find in either one. So they're not that tight. You know, look at the size of the bolts, probably 60 to 70 pounds. I'm just going to tighten it up, basically. Make sure it's tight. I just have a pair of big channel locks here. Just get going with these. Actually, I'll use my hands maybe. That would be better as much as I can. This is just, I'm not going to use these to tighten it. I'm just using these because they're a little easier to move than a pipe wrench. Just use it to get it all the way up against the where it mounts, and then we'll go from there. I'm being careful here as well. I don't want to tear this thing up. I don't want to tear the boot up. I don't want to tear the flats up on this. And just be careful with it. You have just enough room between this CV axle housing and the tie rod end to get a wrench in there and do what you need to do. Most cars, trucks most cars you couldn't do this because you're so jammed that you have to use the tool. You have to use the tool you can get as a loaner, I mentioned before. Okay, so I'm up against it now. It's all the way up against the mounts. We're going to get my pipe wrench again. And I think I'm probably going to have to loosen this to get it in here. Maybe not, but we'll see. Well, looks like I can get it in there. Just being careful because I just have just enough room between the Zerk fitting and the boot to do this. So I've got a hold of it. And I'm just going to tighten it. All right. One more time. I'm just mindful of that Zerk fitting when you do this. All right, that's tight. And then I got to go get an outer tie rod end. I'm planning on replacing it. The other one was good. This one was not good. Too much playing it was making noise, so getting replaced. That's all there is to it. Grease in there. Get a grease gun. Got my grease gun. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm just greasing it, and I'm gonna put some grease in it. Okay, I've got my tie rod end Moog as well. Here's the part number for you. Let's see if I can show that to you. ES3493T. Get to believe it's the same on both sides, left and right. Alright, so before I put this on, I'm going to put little anti-seize on the threads. So if it has to ever come off, it'll be a little easier to get off of there. Not a lot, just a little. Stuff gets on everything no matter what you do. Alright, same number of turns. Started with 26. 1, 2. 26 turns. Okay, I'm just going to line that back up. Get that started back into the outer there. Yeah, I got my Zerk fitting. I'm going to start that. Get a wrench to finish that up. Castle nut. 37 foot-pounds for this tie rod, outer tie rod end. Start that in there. Hopefully you can see that. I'm so low. Let me adjust you a little bit here. Line my cotter pin Looks like it might be lined up already. Try the hole here. Nope. So you gotta line that cotter pin hole up with the castle nut so you can get the cotter pin in there. If it's not lined up, you want to go tighter. Don't loosen it. Just align in that hole right now. I know you can't see that. Alright, it's lined up. Okay. I'll get a wrench to tighten that Zerk fitting up, and then I'm going to grease that, and we will tighten this lock nut. And you can see, like I said, no matter what you do with anti-seize, it gets all over everything. I don't even know what to compare it to except the anti-seize. It gets on everything. Alright, let me get a small wrench to tighten that up. Just snug this up, don't crush it. Okay, I have a 7mm for that particular one. Tighten this up, so when I tighten this, I'm going to hold this outer tie rod end. I'm going to hold it with a pair of vice grips. There's a flat on here, but you can use a wrench or a pair of vice grips. An adjustable wrench or right size wrench, whatever you need. It says 73 foot-pounds for this lock nut, which I don't know how you're going to measure that torque here, but it'll be torque to spec, as we like to say. Okay, so grease the fitting, and we're done. Well, I got to do my measurements. I shouldn't have tightened that lock nut. That was a mistake, because if I have to adjust it, I'm going to have to loosen that back up. I should have measured first, but if I have to move it to get it close, I'll just loosen it up. I'm going to put some grease in it. Swell the boot a little bit. They come with grease, but I always put grease in them. It's always a good idea. Okay. Wipe that off. Clean up after yourself. Just attracts dirt if you don't. Alright. Move that. I don't know how I'm going to measure now. I really don't know how I'm going to measure this now. So I just had to go off a number of revolutions in this case. That was just a mistake on my part. I had to go off the number of revolutions that I took off, same number back on. I did check the length of the new tie rod against the old one. It's the same. And I did check this outer tie rod end against the old one, and it's pretty much the same length. So I should be very close. So we're going to go with that. It's got to go to the alignment shop anyway. Got to go get an alignment, but it should be very close. Just one thing I didn't want to forget to tell you is I wrote on this rotor, so it's always a good idea. Well, not a good idea. You got to clean it. Clean all the stuff off of it. Got a brake clean. Chemical of 1,001 uses. Clean that off and we're done. Alright, I've got the one tie rod that was really bad. See how much it's moving right there? So I'm just going to cut this boot open. I'll try to cut it open here and see if we can look inside and see what we see here. Okay. Just clean this up. I don't know that we're going to be able to see anything in here. This particular series of trucks, Silverados, Suburbans, there's a known issue with, I really can't see anything inside that. I was hoping to see a little more there, but you can see that shouldn't have any play in it. It's completely worn out. You can see it moving around. That's about all I can see though. Bad, really bad. That's just worn out. So, trash. Well, that's about it. Ended up doing an inner and outer tie rod end on the driver's side and an inner on the passenger side. The outer passenger side tie rod end was fine, so I'm not going to replace it just to replace it. If it's fine, it's fine. I don't know when it was replaced last time. They're not original, so they've been done at some point. Not a very difficult job on this truck. It's nice that you don't really need the loaner tool if you don't have it to break that inner tie rod end loose. You can just use a pipe wrench or a big wrench. You have enough room to get in there, which is what I did. You do need to get an alignment done. I kind of messed up when I did the driver's side when I was filming this, that I moved it, and I actually moved the whole inner as I was working on it. And when you move that, and the measurements I take, they don't mean anything at that point because you move the inner as well. So I just went off the number of revolutions that I backed it off. I did measure the replacement tie rod against the one that was in there, as well as the tie rod end, and they were the same. So it should be very close, just based on the number of revolutions of putting that outer tie rod back in and the back on there. And this will get an alignment. If you need to do this job, I hope this helps you out. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.